Today we're going to talk about how we are created to connect. And when I'm done, Jillian Pruitt, our business administrator, is going to take over and help us with some new Realm connections. Now, if you've been around, you know a little bit about Realm. Realm is the software package that we have purchased for the garden, and it actually is one of the top in the nation right now for churches. And it has been a very big investment for us. And it's an investment that will only pay off if we all participated in some way or another. So I want to encourage you to think today about how you can connect with Realm. There's an app, and then you can go online. Now, some of you are sitting there going, no, not another app, not another computer thing. And I'm sorry, yes, it's another app and another computer thing. Now, with that said, if you don't do those kind of things, we will still continue to connect with you. If the best way to connect with you is via phone call, we will do that, and Realm will tell us that we need to call you. So that's not a problem at all. But the truth about life is, in this 21st century, this is how it goes, guys. It goes through apps, it goes through the internet, and it goes very, very quickly. In fact, this past week, I volunteered for a program at Eskenazi. I was learning about a program that I'm volunteering for. And do you know, you cannot be involved in this program unless you have an email address, and you have a cell phone, and you're willing to accept text. It's just the reality of the world. That's just a volunteer position, but they're requiring that. It's just where we're at right now. So I think that the garden is in a really unique position to participate in Realm, but also continue to think about how we share the gospel in the 21st century. Now, why is Realm important at this point for us as the garden? First of all, we're a virtual church. We do not own a building. When we leave here, the theater starts, and this is not our space. So what better way for us to communicate than through the internet? The second thing that we participate in is it is a way for us to appeal to a younger group of people. I don't know if you've noticed, but there aren't a lot of people who are encouraged by the church today, younger people who are encouraged by the church today. And one way we can do that is by connecting with them where they are. And I want the garden to be around for a really long time, and the only way we're going to be able to do that is to start connecting with other people. And then finally, I think that what this opportunity, this Realm opportunity gives us is an opportunity to hold the space between. Now, what does that mean? We are a group of people who know what it's like to live in this 21st century with this technology, but we also know the power of face-to-face communication. I think that we are in a very unique position where all of us can hold that space and honor people wherever they are. We're going to talk a little more about that right now. Jesus talks in John's Gospel. These are his last thoughts that he leaves with the disciples, and particularly in chapter 15, I encourage you to take a look at it. And what he does is, chapter 14 and 15, what he does is he leaves some lasting messages for us, and they're all around love, and they're all around growing. In this particular text, he talks about him being the vine and we're being the branches. And he is grounded in God and we are grounded in him. And together we can bear much fruit in this world. Now, if you go on and read a little more, if you're not bearing fruit, they get tossed away. But we're going to talk about how we can bear fruit. And the way that you can bear fruit, or the love of God in this world, is by abiding in Jesus. What does that mean? What he says here is, he says, abide in me as I abide in you. So recognize that I live in you. Just as a branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. So essentially what he is saying is, I'm already there. So why don't you just continue to nurture this relationship, continue to grow this relationship, and I will help guide you and lead you through life. I think that's pretty powerful when you think about it, isn't it? I mean, he's saying, if I'm at the center of your life, you can handle anything. You can deal with anything. Not only for yourself, but for others as well. I will be there with you in all encounters. And I believe in this 21st century, he'll be there on the email if you let him. Don't push send till you check in with him. Or you send that text, check in with him. Something tells me if you start abiding in that relationship, it may have an impact on those kind of communications that seem to go out pretty quickly and sometimes create some damage. He can be at the center of our communicating because he abides in us and we can connect with him. I believe indeed that this culture is changing. And I believe it gives people like us, the Gardeners, the progressive Christians, the progressive United Methodist Church, an opportunity to show up in a really unique and amazing way. And that is with Jesus at our center. He can show up anytime. Because the truth about life is people are comfortable now giving their attention to many different things at one time, probably you included. The one thing that I'm going to encourage you to give your attention to before you move into that is to put your attention on Him. Because the truth about life is that people are texting all the time, aren't they? They're texting during meetings and presentations, and you have your laptop open all the time. In fact, something tells me some of you have already texted here this morning and may have already checked in on your Facebook page. If you do, make sure you check in at the Garden and tell people how much you love us. But it's just the reality of the world today. It's a reality of the world that Sherry Turkle, the founding director of MIT's Initiative on Technology in Self, noted a long time ago. She wrote a book a number of years ago called Together Alone, and her recent book in 2015, I think, is called Reclaiming the Conversation, The Power of Talk in a Digital Age. Now, what's interesting to me is MIT, right, the most technological institute in the nation, the most profound one, has hired somebody because they recognized that technologies is impacting our ability to communicate. In Together Alone, she noticed that, and there was kind of almost even, she was really concerned about it. In this new book, she recognizes that we have to be able to hold that space in between. We have to accept that technology is part of life, but we also have to accept that we need one another. She shares a story about a school that she was invited into. Principal and teachers invited her into a school because they noticed that the 12-year-old children were not advancing in empathy and sympathy in the same way they had seen in the past. And in fact, they noted that 12-year-old children were really functioning much more like 8-year-olds used to function. The one thing that Turkle took note of right away is she noticed that at lunch, all of these kids, these 12-year-olds, all had cell phones. And they were on their cell phones throughout lunch. And then when they would finish lunch, they would go out in the playground and immediately move to these different places. See, what was happening were these kids were figuring out exactly what play they were going to participate in, who they were going to participate with, and they never took time to notice the kids who were being left out because they had a plan and they were stepping into that plan. The school decided eventually to take cell phones out of the mix, to take texting out of the mix, and to try to encourage kids to play without planning. What a novel idea. And to try to engage and be present with one another. Now, it doesn't stop there. It continues on in high school and college. This connecting to devices is keeping us from connecting with one another. Many kids say that they would much prefer connecting through text than any other way. One case in point was there was a kid who shared a story with Turkle about how his friend's dad died. And his friend decided to text him and tell him that his dad died. And so she asked her, well, what did you do? And he said, well, I texted back and I said I was sorry. She said, did it ever dawn on you that maybe you should go over there? And he said, no, that's a private family matter. I don't need to be in that. I don't need to be part of that. See, it didn't dawn on the kid that maybe he could have brought some comfort. Maybe he could have brought some sympathy or empathy into the situation. He's not alone. Most college kids say that face-to-face conversation is a waste of their time. Why? Because you have no control over where that conversation is going. And expedience is key. Expedience is key in today's world. Face-to-face conversation, it just takes too much time and you lose control. Isn't that interesting? Now, that's not to say that college students don't like to connect. She shared that there are college students that still will get together and go out to dinner with one another and enjoy their time together. And the way that they do that is with their cell phones. And the rule is, as long as 3 out of, say, 8 people have their eyes up and are engaging one another, everything's okay. How about that? But the minute that all 8 of them are down, it's called phubbing. And you get called out for phubbing. Phubbing is when you're with other people and you don't pay any attention to them and all you do is pay attention to your device. So at least there's a word for it now, and call your grandkids out on phubbing if you want to. Another thing that was interesting about this is that kids have recognized that this is not necessarily good. So one of the things they do is they will go to dinner and they'll put all their phones in the middle of the table. And the rule is the first one who ends up going for their phone ends up having to pay the bill. That is one way to keep your way off of the off of the way that we connect. Now, it's not only happening with kids, guys, it's happening everywhere, including in the medical field. Meet Paro. Paro is a seal robot that has been introduced into nursing homes to be present with the elderly. He has been used to talk to people and to listen to their stories. He's been present with Alzheimer's patients and is there to bring comfort to them. Guess what he can sing? He can answer a question that has been given to him because he has been programmed for just about any question that somebody of a particular age would ask. He is programmed to be able to check in on somebody's vital signs. He has been literally programmed to be there and be a friend. Can he really, though? I mean, he's a robot. I mean, can he listen, really? Can he be present with them, really? I mean, any one of us in this room who has ever spent time with someone who has a memory loss issue or has an issue with Alzheimer's, there's nothing more painful than being present with someone who doesn't remember you or remember themselves. There's something powerful in offering an ear into that situation because there is nothing we can do except be present with the person. I don't think Parvo can bring what you and I can bring. I don't think he can be present with someone who has just been given a cancer diagnosis with no hope of life and just simply be present with them. You can do that. You know why? Because the one who abides in you is one of love, and one who will love you no matter what, in this life and in the life to come. And there is not a situation that you cannot handle if Jesus is abiding in you. Can Paro be present with someone who is in the throes of addiction and doesn't see it? Can Parvo be present with someone who you see the answer for them, but they can't see it at all? He can't. But you can, not because of you, but because you have a relationship with the one who loves you more than you can imagine. And he promises that wherever 2 or 3 are gathered, he's going to be there with you. He's not going to leave you to face those trials alone. He gives us what we need to step into those tough conversations. He gives us what we need to deal with a kid who can't stand that you're going to talk to them when they want to text to you. He gives you what you need. And what you need, my friends, is no judgment. Don't go to these kids who are doing this and saying that's wrong. Just be present with them. Be present with them. Watch and witness them texting. Watch and witness them trying to move their attention to anything but where they are. Because oftentimes that is a sign of loneliness. And if you're willing to be present with a kid, with a college student, with an elderly person who is lonely, Jesus will go to work. He'll be there with you, friends. He will be there with you. He will be there when you are so uncomfortable. He will be there when you feel like crying. He will be there when you feel like you're challenged. He will be there when you feel like laughing. He will be there with any emotion that you have. And he won't let you deal with it on your own. Friends, we have a unique opportunity. I would love for us to be the church that people says, oh my gosh, that's a church where they listen to you. That's a church where they never pick up their phone. They sit and they listen to you and they smile and they pray and they don't really pray because they're gardeners. Like they don't outwardly pray with you, but you can tell they're praying by the way they're looking at you and they're loving you. Wouldn't you love to be that church? I would so love to be that church, and we can be that church. We can be the church that's willing to be present in this world with people who are lonely, with people who don't remember, with people who are struggling with addiction. Not because of us, but because Jesus. Why? because he created us to connect. Will you pray with me? God, you have created us to be friends, to get to know one another, and to be fully present with one another. Help us when we would rather text than talk. Help us when we would rather to avoid those tough situations where feelings come up that we don't understand. Help us by stepping in and taking control. You are a God of love who works through a Son who shared love with us. So help us abide in him and trust indeed that he abides in us, because you created us to connect. Amen.